Okay, so the hand, I'll try not to talk too much through it, but I kind of get chatty when I'm a little nervous, so we'll see how it goes. So this is the size I'm going for. Use your own hand as reference, obviously. It's the easiest thing to look at while you're working. So I'm just trying to guess at the volume. The beautiful thing about this clay is you don't have to feel bad about messing up. You can just add, take away without any problems. So what I'm doing first is roughing out the low poly version. So I'm looking at volume, trying to get the rough finger, palm, and wrist rough shape here. So you can see already it's starting to resemble a hand, and if I'm doing a light version or a quick rough-in, I'll leave it at that until I'm ready to do details. But here we go. So I'm looking at the heights of these parts of the digits. You could do the hand lines if you want. If you've used ZBrush, it's really a lot like that. You really just can't be attached to the details at this point. You just want to rough it in, and sometimes you're going to smudge it and move right over it, but it helps to see it sometimes just to rough in a line here and there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. So it's already got a good feel at different angles. Web there. And now I'm just going to measure out the knuckles from the inside first. I'm trying to keep the volume rough right now, but pretty accurate. If you end up pulling it too far, you know, it's obviously a little too long. You can sort of push the whole thing back in. It's pretty forgiving clay. Well, I think my rough guesstimate there was pretty close. Okay, so inside first. Okay. Now, the back is where it really starts to happen. So for this part, you don't need a tool. You can just do a little pinch there. You've got a knuckle. This part of the hand, I don't know about most people's hands, but for mine, I'm used to looking at them. So the part of contact here and the one back here is actually slanted. So the knuckle on your fist is actually further down than you might think if you haven't observed it before. And the nice thing about this clay too, if you just run your finger over it a few times lightly, it turns perfectly smooth. It's actually very nice for that. So now I'll start to bend each finger as I go. Done this in a while in front of people.
Just chill out, man.
Trying. So usually bend it a little bit, and when you straighten it, you'll notice it's got a pretty good feel for a finger at that point. So again, I'm pinching, and if I can do it with my fat fingers, you can do it too. This one's a little lower. There we go. So that's the Roughin. After that, it's pretty hard without a tool. Probably need something. If you want to do little fingernails and knuckle wrinkles. Let's see if I can get in close. So it's all about level of detail. You don't really need to go so crazy. Sometimes just a little hint of something can be enough to indicate a shape. So just going around like that a little bit. Boom, there's a nail. Little happy tree there. And there you go. Let's see, I'll sharpen tool. It's like working in a mirror. I can't do it. All right, there we go. See, sometimes the sharper tool is not that good. See, this point's a little too pointy. So having that nice rounded point is really, really useful for this sort of thing. And this is ideal for this kind of nail. Just go like that. And then it's just clean up. Get your little hand. Again.
Do it again.
JC, is it like actually easy to do, or it's because of
I've done this like 50 or 100 times. I don't know. It's hard for me to. I don't think about it anymore, but I try to explain what I'm thinking about as I do it.
15 minutes.
You just have to get a feel for it, and it's really, the more you work with it, the better you'll get. Some people I've had pick it up the first day, and other people, they get really good after a couple weeks. You know, you never know.
or never?
Or never.
That's a little pessimistic.
Most artists can pick it up pretty fast. I was always surprised. You could never peg, you know, if it was a 2D artist or somebody who was 3D. You just don't know. You learn to see first, but you still have to get the feel. There's nothing to describe about it, but once you can do it without thinking about it, then it just happens. I don't know. So that's the first thing. So after that, we're going to do a few more little exercises. So I don't know if I'm going to do full size, maybe half size. I'll just show you how I tackle a few things quickly and simple shapes. And then we can practice. Yeah, even this big one. So you can see this nice simple shape. You can do quite a bit with that. But having something different on the other side helps too. So either a little pointier, or I tried to make them a little different on each side.
Does that clay dries after a while to the point that you cannot remold it?
No, this it never really dries out. If you leave it on a piece of paper, it'll sort of seep out after a year.
Yeah.
But only a little bit of oil and it'll get stiffer like this. It doesn't actually ever, the only thing it'll get is dusty.
Yeah.
So this is nice and clean, and the gray doesn't really show dust as much. You'll see like on this one, you can see all the dirt that's in that. It's not really clean
So
flesh color anymore.
That's not baked.
Nope,
If you were to smash that,
it'll smush.
it was smash.
Yeah.
Just check.
I followed it.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so should be able to see what I'm doing pretty quick, but I'm gonna see how fast I can do it with just a few smooshies.
It's your mouth.
It's chocolate. Oh, it is.
Sorry. People modeling always forget about the corners of the mouth. Number one thing, they would just make it flat across the front of the face, but it's amazing how much life you can put into something just by pushing those little corners in. Even just hinting at it makes a huge difference.
Are you working off the wall right now, or are you kind of like?
I'm just going out of my head from doing it a bunch of times, but I'll show you some examples of anybody who's brave enough to sit still for me. about it for that. You learn to see the shape. The more times you do it, it's like drawing. The more times you do it, the more you see those lines. And when you start doing it here, your drawings are going to get better because you're going to feel that line in 3D. So one exercise I like to do is have students get these ready to go in a rough shape like this, and then practice moving around doing a few different ethnicities around the room, just because it's really good practice. Another thing people don't do a lot of times is look up a nose from the bottom. You learn a lot about the shape of the nostrils that way too. It's hard to get people to cooperate.
Some fear of what you might discover.
Yeah, it's usually not very polite to just do it without asking though. See?
Drew my nose already on Tuesday.
So depending on the type of nose, you may have more of a point. But usually the nostrils don't come all the way up to the front. Another thing I don't do, a lot of people, well, I don't want to use bad words, but some elitist type people who teach clay insist on using calipers and measuring each side. I just refuse out of laziness, and also I think it's because my eye gets better every time I practice making symmetry, and things always feel more alive when I do them without trying to measure either. So like this caricature of this guy here, I didn't, it's way off from side to side, but it feels more alive that way, I always think.
Right, and everybody's not perfectly symmetrical from the left
Right.
side to the right side anyways.
When you start to see those differences, then you get really accurate. So again, this is just me guessing out of my head here. We'll do some observation stuff later. But that's the rough idea. Okay. So eyes are always a little weird. When you're doing eyes in clay, you can't really do an eye without the brow ridge. It's sort of the same with the nose without doing the top of the lip. But the biggest problem with eyes in clay is the iris. There's lots of different methods. Marble, if you ever looked at them, they'll carve it out and make a little fake highlight. There's a lot of things you can do, but I usually just carve a hole to get that shadow. But depending on how you're going to finish your model, you may want to just paint it out later so you'd fill it in. I've even used little wooden beads before, so I get the same size sphere for each eye, and then just painted it later. This clay is really forgiving in the oven too. You don't actually bake it at a very high temperature, so you can do a lot of stuff with it, and by pre-baking or mixing actual little string for rope, and there's a lot you can do.
Sorry, baking with string? What do you mean?
Like if you want to make a rope on your character, or
Oh, right.
you would use like one of those little model type ropes that look like a rope at that scale. Okay, so eyeball. So again, this shape tool, if I just roll around, like this carefully, I can get an inset round shape. Oops. So now, eyelashes and eyelids, there's a lot of different ways you can go about that. It takes a certain finesse, but if you want to, you can just press it out of there. Or you can add on. This clay's really good for that sort of thing. Get the little corner out there. But at this point, I usually block in the iris. Just hinting at it like that. Let me know if I get off camera there. You can also take the clay from up here and bring it down for the eyelid. Make a little eyelash out of it. It gets really hard to do little eyelashes at the small scale. You kind of just hint at it with a little bump. You'll get that nice shadow, and then you can just paint it in. I don't ever usually make little lines for the iris because I'm working in a smaller scale usually, but depends on what you're doing. Same with eyes. People don't realize how much it wraps around from the side. It's kind of hard to do in this flat piece, but if you tuck that corner back in there, you end up with a little more interesting shapes. And that's about it for this scale. So I'm just going to show you really, really quickly how you would do that again, super tiny, just to get you the idea of what we're going for. So now this is the scale we're going to shoot for the next couple weeks. So same thing, super tiny.
Can you bake it, add, and bake again?
Yes. You have to be a little careful though, because the more times you bake it, it does get soft each time you bake it for a few minutes. So you can't be you can't do it too much. But I definitely do. I've baked it before putting clothes on before and that kind of thing. It's actually a really useful device because it gives you a chance to try again if you mess up. It sticks to itself very well when it's baked.
So that Rob statue was naked at some point.
Yes. I didn't post those pictures though. You notice.
Can you bake it and then like work on it, like chisel it or sand it or?
Yep. It's actually it's carvable. It'll break at some point if you try to drill it with like an actual vibrating drill. But if you hold the drill bit in your hand and twist it, you can carve right into it. I've just used an X-Acto before. It works really well. Little lips.
So you said it's hard to find. You need Toronto. You have to order it. You cannot find it in.
If you go to Michael's, you'll find the beige or the skin-colored one, but it'll be the very, very soft kind. And it's usually runs about 18 to 20 bucks a pound. When you buy it in bulk, you can get it for like $10 a pound. But it's still expensive as clays go. I have some other clays I could show you examples of, but you really can't beat this clay for its versatility. The same clay professionals use for toys, and but some of them swear on the oil clays too. But it really depends on what they learned on and what they prefer. You get a feel for a certain type after a while, and then you sort of want to stick with it.
What do you think of the ones that dry with time?
I'm not a big fan of those. I never liked terracotta that much either. I did pottery for a little bit, but not seriously enough. It was always too temporary. Little lips. Okay, so I'll give you all some clay and get some tools, and we'll get started.